If I'm being honest, I've never really been a fan of side-scrolling games. Something about the genre feels a bit played out. Maybe it's the fact that so many games have tried to capture that same feeling that the original Mario Bros gave people when it first released, or maybe it's the fact that side-scrollers seem to be stuck in a strict formula. I mean, pretty much all of them play out the same. You have to trudge your way through a hub world full of themed levels that experiment with different ideas and mechanics, eventually making your way to a final boss battle and beating the game. I guess it's kinda hard to break out of a formula that's proven successful time and time again. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's for this very reason that most side-scrollers have felt, I guess, kinda shallow to me. So recently, I had a lot of you guys recommend I try Shovel Knight, which apparently, while it harkens back to classic retro games like Mario or Zelda 2, finds a way to break out of the mold that you might expect from a side-scroller. Feeling hopeful yet cautious, I decided to give it a try. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy my review for Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. So Shovel Knight is pretty unique in the fact that it's actually technically 4 different games built into one. You've got the original base game, Shovel of Hope, where you play as the Shovel Knight himself on a quest to save his old friend Shield Knight. This game most closely resembles the classic side-scrolling formula. The only difference is that there is a new boss fight at the end of every single level, and if I'm being honest, the bosses in Shovel Knight are definitely the highlight of the game. They are all unique and interesting characters themselves, which is why it makes so much sense that you actually play as these bosses in the other games. As far as I know, these games came out as free updates after Shovel Knight first released, consisting of Plague of Shadows, where you play as the mad scientist Plague Knight, Spectre of Torment, where you play as the hauntingly tragic Spectre Knight, and finally King of Cards, where you play as the incredibly goofy yet charming King Knight. Each of these games follow a pretty similar layout and formula, but they are also vastly different in execution. While Shovel Knight definitely feels like a classic side-scroller, you also have the power to bounce off of enemies' heads with his shovel. Spectre Knight can run up walls and glide across rails. King Knight uses the shoulder-bashing attacks to traverse different platforming sections, and Plague Knight uses projectiles as a way to attack ranged enemies. Right off the bat, this was a pretty genius idea by the developers, because after completing Shovel of Hope, players are already invested in these boss characters. Each game also has an entirely unique story, and while all of them are able to stand on their own without needing the context from the others, they are also interwoven into each other's stories, which adds so much more to each playthrough. The genres of each game are completely different as well. Shovel of Hope is obviously the classic hero's journey as seen in popular side-scrollers, but Plague of Shadows is a love story, Spectre of Torment is a tragedy, and King of Cards is probably closest to a comedy. I found myself really impressed with how much they balanced each of these games, giving just as much attention to one as they would the other. So now that you have an idea of what Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is, let's talk about the gameplay itself. Each character has their own unique movesets, which feel completely different from each other. When I first started playing, it was a bit hard to get used to the clunkiness of the platforming. Shovel Knight certainly doesn't feel as smooth as a Mario game, but I found that with time, I got used to the more harsh movements. When you're first starting out, Shovel Knight is a pretty difficult game, especially since you don't have any abilities or power-ups you collect later on. But once you start to learn the different patterns of combat and traversing the world, things start to feel a lot more natural. By the time I reached the end of Shovel of Hope, I was able to tackle bosses on my first try easily. But luckily this was also balanced out by the increasing difficulty of the platforming sections. There are also different hub worlds for each game that reminded me a lot of the towns in Zelda 2. Basically, you can stop at them between levels and buy armor upgrades, power-ups and abilities, health upgrades, and stuff like that. There's also a lot of charm in talking with different locals in town, plus each game has its own unique mini-game room, which is fun to mess around in when you don't feel like tackling a level just yet. Oh, and also, it would be a sin to ignore Shovel Knight's soundtrack. I truly believe Shovel Knight is carried by its music. There are so many memorable and catchy melodies that I constantly had stuck in my head, and I can't even be mad about it. There are also different remixes of each song depending on which game you're playing, and they all capture that perfect feeling of playing an old NES game. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say the best part of Shovel Knight is its music, which says a lot because it's a pretty damn good game. I really enjoyed playing Shovel Knight, and although I was concerned that it might rely too much on the classic retro side-scroller formula, it was able to mix things up just enough to feel like a fresh modern take on the genre. Like I was saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Shovel Knight has a lot to love, and while the experience did sort of get repetitive through the last couple playthroughs, it's easily my favorite side-scroller I've played over the last few years. For those reasons, I'm going to give Shovel Knight Treasure Trove an 8 out of 10. So what do you guys think about Shovel Knight? Which of the games is your favorite? I think Shovel of Hope is a clear winner for me, but Spectre of Torment is a pretty close second. Anyways, subscribe for more reviews weekly, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you have any games you want me to review next, make sure to let me know. Chances are I'll give it a try. As always, keep gaming to the fullest, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.